talking about Caren here again, she's a really interesting unit. She's really hotly debated, I would say, amongst certain circles, where like a lot of people think that she's overblown and not that good. A lot of people think that she is really good and people don't give her due diligence. Now, I'm going to try to go through this with you guys. Admittedly, Caren is a unit that I have not used very much myself, but I'm going to give you guys my take on her. And again, actually, I have been provided with some tips from chat on this one. Some things that even I didn't know after the couple times that I've managed to get my hands on her and use her on JP. So just talking about her here, as you guys can see, starting off right off the bat, she has 11k attack. That is not the greatest. That's fairly low for a 5-star. However, keep in mind she's a ruler. That means they get a 1.1 modifier basically, so she should be fine. That should be okay. And she has plenty of steroids in her kit. So again, just remember, don't look just at the attack. That's not necessarily going to be what you should judge her on. Again, HP value here, she's up around the 14k mark, not quite at it. So this is maybe a little bit on the lower end, but I'm okay with this because she's a ruler. So rulers are naturally just going to be tanky against a lot of the classes in the game. So it's not too big of a deal as long as you're not taking her against a bunch of other like extra class type enemies. You should be okay. But again, still really, really nice. And looking at this, she is sky traded. She is lawful good. Looking at her NP gain rate here, it's only 0.57. Now, again, you might be thinking this is necessarily not that great, especially for a quick oriented unit. I actually didn't say this at the beginning, but Caren is a 5-star AoE quick ruler. So relatively rare as far as we've seen in terms of archetypes for a ruler. Still, I do like this NP gain rate. It's not that bad for her given everything else that she has in her kit, and we're going to show you that here in a second. She is female. Her basic traits are costume owning, divine, hominide, servant, humanoid, immune to pigify, living human, pseudo servant, Roman, just normal servant, and then weak to intimate elish. You guys can see here too, her deck is basically going to be 2Q, 2A, 1B. She is a quick oriented unit, so actually having double arts cards here, I'm okay with this. This helps out any sort of NP gain issue that she might have, provided you don't just immediately kill the enemy and move on. Now, that being said, again, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the sort of synergy that Summer Scotty now has with Buster. So maybe having a second Buster card might have been better than a second Arts in the long run, but I'm going to say this is probably not going to be an issue that's going to affect Caren too much. And the reason for that is because Caren is actually one of our best sort of 3-turn farming units within the quick system. She just naturally is going to be really good at handling odd structure nodes, but again, you may still find where she might struggle just depending on what the actual setup is and depending on your ability to be able to handle it, maybe with like starting charge shees and stuff like that. That's going to be determined by events and your situation, so it just might depend. But just again, looking at this, all of her hit counts here are average with the exception of the quick card, which is above average. Looking at her first skill here, this one's a little bit of a doozy. So this one's going to grant herself invincibility for 3 attacks, 3 turns. That right there, really nice survival skill. It's got good duration as well as multiple hits. She's also going to grant herself a regeneration buff for 3 turns that will absorb the party's NP gauge by 10% except self every turn. The amount of NP drained on the allies is equal to the amount of NP charged by the skill user. So basically, every 10% that she steals from an ally is 10% she will get. So if you're draining 2 allies, like let's say double Scotty and they both have charge, and you're draining them, you're going to get not 10%, but 20 because you're draining both those other people. So really, really nice there. It's basically a 20% per turn as long as your allies have the gauge themselves. Again, she's going to grant the party invincibility for 1 attack 3 turns except herself, which understandable since she gave herself 3 times. And she's going to increase the party's NP gen rate except herself for 3 turns. So again, kind of another reason why it's not being given to her is because she's draining it from the party. So naturally she's just getting charge anyways. This helps somebody else though be able to generate charge so that maybe that battery doesn't run out on you. Again, the only thing you get from actually leveling this skill is the reduction of the cooldown as you go across, as well as the NP gain rate that your allies get. So this is a relatively safe non-skill to level if you find yourself short on materials somehow. I obviously, in the grand scheme of things, especially for a challenge environment, you want to skill this skill. You want to get it up high. And again, with rulers, it's just like moon cancers, it's just like alter egos. It's just basically going to be skill gems up until their 7th rank of their skill. So skill gems and QP, that's it. As long as you have those under wraps, as long as you're not super new and don't have the skill gems or QP, you should be fine to level the skill up at least to a decent level. Even leaving it at, say, rank 7, you're going to get that to a 7-turn cooldown, which isn't bad. So I would definitely say this is a candidate for sort of skilling last in her entire kit. Now, I think it would behoove me to obviously talk about one of the issues with this skill. This issue is largely already dealt with. This was an issue on Caren's release on JP, and that was that, well, what's the natural support that you're going to use with Caren? Scotty. You're going to use double Scotty. We're back to that block 50 charge argument that I talked about before, though, here, where, yeah, because Scotty has 50% charge, that's really nice. She can put those on Caren all day. Scotty herself doesn't have any sort of party charge, so she's not going to get any charge for herself. So the issue on release of JP was, yeah, unless you're using a starting charge C on your Scotty, you're probably not going to have the NP to absorb here for this skill. Thankfully, this was very quickly remedied by appends coming out, and thus the mana loading append allowed basically Scotty to start with, you know, up to 20% charge. That's actually going to be one of the reasons that you should unlock and lower your mana loading on Scotty if you plan to roll for Caren. So NA already has this. This won't be as big of an issue, but certainly it's something I should call attention to so that you guys understand it. Her second skill is going to be a taunt for 1 turn of 300%. It's going to charge her own gauge 30% right here, and then drain enemies by 1. Now, again, if this is weird, you maybe would think that this is some sort of vampirism or something, but it's literally a self-charge of 30% on its own and a enemy-wide drain of 1. So these two are not related at all. That's actually good. That means that it doesn't depend on the amount of enemies on the field. It doesn't depend on the success or anything like that. You just get it either way. So really, really nice design there. It's also going to reduce their attack for 3 turns by up to 20%. And again, reduce their defense for 3 turns by up to 20%. This one's going to be probably one you're going to want to invest in for no other reason than simply, obviously, the charge. And again, having the defense down, not going to hurt you. So it's both a steroid, again, a damage increasing capability on top of a charge skill. You're definitely going to want to lower this if you possibly can. Now, looking at her third skill here, you've got quick, arts, and buster performance for 3 turns for herself of 20% each. Not the strongest in terms of steroids, because it's only 20%. Really, the big one she's going to care about is that quick up, because again, she's got a quick MP. Still, with carding, sure, certainly arts up can definitely help you, especially on the MP gain side of things, and buster up, hey, you're getting that more damage. So not a bad thing all in all, definitely welcome in that regard. However, on top of this, and the other reason you're going to lower it, you get 20% charge. So right here, combined with her second skill that gives 30%, and this skill that gives 20, she is a 50% charger. What is cool about this is she can kind of break this up. This does not all have to happen on 1 turn. Also on top of this, she yet again drains the enemy. So Caren is given the good suck at this point. She is literally draining her teammates, draining the enemy repeatedly over and over again, and just pulling it all into herself and getting all the charge from it. Really, really nice to have this. And again, going to be someone that really, I think, will flourish in a challenge environment because of it, because she's just going to really focus on deprivation, actually depriving the enemy of their capability to get to an NP. Now, again, the issue I would say, though, is a lot of this is locked down in your skills, and quick isn't known for its cooldown reductions. In fact, I believe the only quick unit that can do that is Made Alter. So still, you may be able to find other ways into having cooldown reductions, but it's probably not going to be the biggest of issues. You're going to primarily, with Caren, focus on trying to get things dead within 3 turns. If you can't, then you definitely have an issue. But certainly, it's not too long to get back to having all of your buffs back and everything like that. Probably looking at another 3 turns-ish there before you're good again. Again, she's got item and construction A for debuff success rate of 10%, independent action A for additional crit damage on top of already insane quick crits due to Scotty, and then masochistic spiritualistic disposition EX, where she's going to increase her own attack by 20% while she has debuffs. This is the one I need to talk to you guys about. So Caren, if she ever has a debuff, can get 20% extra attack. Now, I've had some people be like, well, wait, Cad, doesn't the taunt count? No, this is actually a buff. This is not a debuff. So the taunt does not count towards this. However, the good news is there's two very easy ways to get this, aside from just naturally being in a fight that has debuffs. One, Black Grail. Black Grail is a great craft essence for Caren. She can easily start from 0 in most situations that are 3/3/3 anyways. So allowing Black Grail on her not only is going to give just an insane amount of extra damage due to the fact that Black Grail itself is strong, it's also going to allow this passive of hers to fire, giving her 20% more attack. So really, really nice synergy there with Black Grail. That's going to be pretty much her craft essence of choice. But let's assume for a second that you can't use Black Grail in some way, shape, or form. Maybe you're in an event, maybe you need to use a 50% charge seed in order to make something happen. Maybe it's the node structure causing that. There's another trick, and this is one that chat clued me in on because I haven't used her enough to know this. You can actually slap another Avenger in her back line there. So again, using someone like Angry Mango, using any other unit that has the Avenger passive. The Avenger passives, one of them is a party-wide debuff, and that can trigger this. It's just your, I believe your resistance to other debuffs, but that's really nice that simply by putting a unit in your back line, not even as part of the comp, you can actually still trigger this without having to rely on any sort of other gimmick. So really, really nice to allow that to work, and also really fitting for her lore as well. So I do like this in that regard. I think this is a really cool, really interesting passive skill that they've given her. She does have Goddess Essence B here, again, for some extra little flat damage added and an increase to her debuff resistance. So that'll help offset any sort of like, hey, I'm trying to run with an Avenger in my backline that may be hurting me in that regard. And then she's got Iron-Willed Faith A that's also going to grant her Terror debuff immunity. Be careful here. This is not stun immunity. This is Terror. Terror is a sort of debuff that can cause a delayed stun proc. That is what she would be immune to, not just pure stun. But still really, really nice in that regard. And then also Charm immunity can be really good here as well for certain fights. So definitely really good there. And then Buster resistance in case you encounter a unit that is using Buster against you, but still really, really good there. Looking at her pins, obviously you've got the first two here. We talked about mana loading in particular to her allies, but certainly mana loading can help her, especially in a weird structure node. It could be one of those things. Remember, she's got that like 30% charge skill or another 20% charge skill, so you can maybe combine these things to work with Scotty or maybe even someone like Nero Bride or something like that in order to get the right charge amount that you need on turn 1. So I would definitely recommend looking into the mana loading there with her. And then for her third skill here, she's got anti-archer attack damage aptitude. Now, there's nothing that really screams, hey, use this on her. This is not necessarily something you have to have. But I think a lot of people are probably going to be trying to use Caren from a sort of neutral looping standpoint. This could definitely be a really, really solid option for you in that regard. If you're going to use your Caren prolifically, you're going to use her probably in some archer nodes. This would not be a bad one. I would still go with the mana loading first, maybe even the extra attack, just depending on how much you're going to be putting her on an island or using her in challenge environment. But yes, this third skill could be useful to her, just depending. Now, looking at her Noble Phantasm, again, she has had an upgrade down the line. I will talk about that in a second, but just the version that you guys are going to get here on NA, it's a 5-hit AoE quick NP. It deals damage to all enemies, reduces their quick resistance by 20% for 3 turns after damage, and then inflicts buff block status 1 time for 3 turns to them. So not only is she going to drain them, she's just going to be annoying to them. They're not going to be able to get their buffs on if you're just sitting there looping over the top of them over and over and over again, buff blocking them. That is actually one of the more hilarious ways that Caren can just sort of deprive the enemy. And then on top of that, she also increases her own damage for 1 turn by 10%. Now, this isn't a multi-turn duration, so it's not going to be stacking over the loop, but hey, it's 10% extra that you're going to get. It does increase with overcharge, and certainly if you're pulling in, say, like an Oberon or something later, yeah, this is something that will get, again, combined and doubled up by the boost effect that he has. So definitely a really, really nice damage increasing overcharge effect there. Again, looking at her actual NP buff, it obviously is going to increase the damage that gets dealt, but then it's going to provide her a super effective niche against chaotic alignment enemies. So really, really nice there on top of that. I'm going to honestly say that she didn't need this on top of everything else, but hey, certainly makes her even better. Caren was already good before this. She will definitely be good with this. I think the big thing that you guys are going to see a lot of people knock about Caren is just simply her card type. The fact that she's quick. Quick is not dead by any means on JP, but it certainly could use some quality of life at this point. It just needs more options with regards to its support. It needs more staying power, especially for challenge quests. But hey, if you're worried about that, you have Caren, who is a unit that will have that staying power. So definitely a solid option for you, whether it be for quick farming or for challenge content. Let me know what you think about Caren. Let me know if you're going to roll for her, and I will see you guys for the next video.